Aloha. This is me talking to me, making a commitment to sit down for the next 100 days and speak my story into existence. I'm living it already every day, have lived it. I felt compelled and convicted to speak life and love over myself, my body, my energy, and to do that means coming and sitting down in all the imperfect glory and the messy magical that is the postpartum hairs and the not yet showered from the day and all of the colorful chaos happening around me, and feel such a peace and an excitement and kind of curiously like a nervousness. How should I do this? How should I go about this? And I don't have a template for it. I don't have a script. I don't have a plan other than a knowing that my story is worth telling and our collective stories are worth telling, and that we are storytellers. Generationally, our ancestors were storytellers. They handed us down that gift, that knowledge that ignites from within us, that we have stories worth telling, worth sharing, that leading with our vulnerability as their superpower. I've had this knowing for the past 5 years, and it's been growing as I've pivoted a lot in my life and really leaned into the creative inside, really leaned into the inner introvert and the writer and the author and this connector piece in me. And so I have this dream to manifest of writing a book. And the book is called Mama Tuition. It's the intuition that has come to be my superpower as a mother, and that I believe exists inside every mother. I've seen it in many multitudes of delivery rooms that I've been privileged and honored to be in. And I've seen it in friends and family and within myself, trusting that instinct, trusting that inborn, magical, magnificent, expansive peace within us, that truly, pun intended, peace, the inner peace that we have, but also the piece of us that knows, that can be heard when we quiet everything and get still. And so Mama Tuition is a book. And more than that, it's a living, breathing story, ongoing. So it came to me to write this book by way of speaking this book. More than a book, it's a story. Like I said, it's living, breathing, growing, evolving, imperfect. So I'm not going to edit this. I'm not going to judge it. I'm going to accept it just as I accept myself on this journey of speaking life and love over myself, of moving forward and choosing each day this form of self-care, which for me is writing, is creating, is telling my story. And so I want to, for me, dive in straight away today with speaking life into the birth story, my birth story. I believe a mama is reborn every time she has a baby, right? And so for me, this third time of having a baby, I'm 14 months postpartum with my youngest, Chord Nalu. And I want to speak to the story of my becoming a mama a third time and how that has been healing for me. And so Mama Tuition, chapter-wise, I know a lot of times in my life I would sit down and have templates, and you're going to hear, though I think in this way it's going to be woven in the most beautiful way, bits of my past and present and future, and the linear and non-linear path that is life. So I am writing this, recording this, speaking this, my story for me, because I believe that it allows me to show up as the best version of myself, the best, most fulfilled, most on fire, most ignited, transformed version of me, which then translates and pours and drenches into all the other roles that I joyfully show up for every day, as a mother, as a wife, as a creator, as a physician, as a healer. And so with that introduction, more of a why, and anchoring, a knowing that my story is meant to be told. Even, now this has been welling up for 5 years, and so I'm sitting down, starting it now. So I don't know that there's chapters so much as stories that are going to come up, and I'm going to allow it to flow and be a unhindered, unfiltered, unscripted version of me, raw and real and vulnerable. And so I'm going to dive into Chord. Chord Nalu is her name. She's 14 months old, and she is a fierce female taking up space in this world, and I love her. So she started taking up space in me September, October-ish of 2022. I long held space in my body, in my mind, in my spirit for a third child. I just knew that I felt called and hoped and dreamed of being a mom a third time around. When I had my son, our second, I remember going through the newborn milestones with him and loving, embracing all of those, and also knowing in my body it wasn't the last time I would experience those milestones. And so our oldest daughter, at the time that I became high or pregnant with Chord, was probably, Camden was 6 or 7. I guess she was just newly 7. And Cruz was newly 4. And I remember being, obviously so hopeful, and life's happening at full speed. And I think I had a dental appointment, which, again, the dental x-rays I didn't even say anything before that, so I don't know why I said again. But I took a pregnancy test because I was, I think, going in for dental x-rays, or maybe I had already I think I had already taken that. It was negative and had the dental. And then this time I had some breast tenderness and just was like, And so I took a test, and actually JD was sleeping, taking a nap at the time. And so Camden and Cruz were around, and I remember checking it and seeing that it was positive and feeling so elated, so overjoyed, and so also of course it's positive, been hoping and dreaming for this. But obviously it wasn't we definitely have been trying and allowing for this possibility to maybe happen. And so I put the positive test on a surfboard next to JD in the bed. And I remember Camden asking appropriate questions, seeing that I had this stick. And she was actually the first person to find out about her baby sister, who she had manifested. I'll tell more about that. We didn't find out for any of them if it was a girl or a boy. And she said, "What is that stick?" And I explained to her, she, or you pee on this, and it tells you yes or no if you are high, pregnant, with a baby in your belly. And she was like, "Okay, so you peed on that, you she-sheed on that stick, and now you're gonna give it as a present?" Because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna put it as a present for Daddy." And she was just like, "I really don't think that's a great present, Mom. To pee on something and give it to somebody. That's not." And it honestly was so hilarious because she could not understand why I would give that to him, and that would be a good gift. And I just loved it so much. And sometimes she doesn't like me to tell that story. And I want to respect all the ways that she wants to assert herself as the fierce female that she is. But he woke up eventually and saw it and was like, "Is this what I think it is?" And I don't even know if I took any subsequent tests, because I knew it. With each subsequent pregnancy, I've known and trusted my body even more. And so I had this knowing that I was high, I was pregnant, all was well, all was how it should be. So I don't believe I took any subsequent tests. I just scheduled the initial OB appointment that happened sometime later. I think I found out around like 5 or 6 weeks, kind of early. And then it was Halloween time, and we were Aladdin themed for Halloween. Camden was Jasmine. Cruz was okay, JD was the genie. Oh yeah, Cruz was Aladdin. Camden was Jasmine. Kai Kai was the magic carpet, and I was Abu. And then right after Halloween, which was so fun, I wasn't telling anyone yet, but just having that expectant glow and just knowing and just feeling it, for me, it's so fulfilling. I feel so empowered, pregnant. I have some Kai Kai hair in my mouth. Kai Kai is our husky, and his hair truly floats around every corner of our holly and home and hearts. He's my first baby. We had been wanting to take back Camden and Cruz to Bali. This is where we honeymooned 12 years before. And some people on our honeymoon had been like, oh, we've got to bring back your babies one day. And we had really always wanted to do that. And so we had been thinking about this trip, hadn't actually booked anything, but had been really kind of landscaping it and taken off work for JD from it. And so I think I remember coming home Halloween night and going ahead and just booking the flights to Bali through Tokyo and Singapore, and going to Bali, going to Lombok, which we had always wanted to do, and then following that by Bali and Canggu Beach and some places that we had stayed at in our honeymoon, and retracing our steps and getting to do that, now as a family of 4 with 5 on the way. And gotten my blessing from my OB, who's one of my dear friends here on Maui, that, it's extremely early on, so you're going to either feel good or not feel good, but you might as well do those things in Bali and adventuring. So we went on this epic trip, and it was amazing, and just knowing that I was carrying this new life and getting to experience it, and I did do well, like not getting sick or not feeling too, I felt fine, felt good on the trip. And then we came home and, started the journey of pregnancy, high season here on Maui. And it was just fun throughout the pregnancy. I think it was close to Valentine's Day. We had the anatomy scan and everything, checked out really well with that. Oh, I had also gone over to Oahu around Christmas time for a 12-week scan. And this time being AMA, like advanced maternal age, because I was 40 throughout the pregnancy. I had plenty of scans. I did indulge in like these amazing underwater maternity photos that still to this day are so anchoring for me in the glory that I felt being pregnant. They are breathtaking to me because it represents so much. In the photos, I was surrendering to the liquid aloha around me, surrendering to being suspended in this fluid state. And I swam out kind of far with the photographer. And so trusting my body, trusting my breath. It was like treading only because it was kind of deep. And so I remember going deep and the way I was having to speak to myself to calm down my nervous system and translate that to baby who was also floating and growing and thriving, not just surviving. So I kind of tapped into that mindset, and it was really, really beautiful to be suspended together in the ocean, in the water, to be held, to be nurtured in that way. And so we took some family photos as well, and I will always treasure those. And then those pictures were on the cover of like a local magazine here in Maui. And actually one of my OBGYN friends has it hanging on her office, which is such an honor. And it was just a really amazing way to celebrate the magnificence of my body while pregnant. And truly for me, in full disclosure, since my birth of my first daughter, I had some polyhydramnios, which is the extra amniotic fluid. And, we all have like the stretching, the widening of the diastasis recti, the abdominal musculature. And for me, it's stretched a lot, and I still have like some hernia coming out through like my belly button region. And I have done like a lot of postpartum core work, and I will continue to do that, and to honor and to speak life and love over my body. But I remember going back to work postpartum with Camden in the hospital and being asked if I was pregnant, and I've spent the past 8 years people asking me if I've been pregnant. And so I have been on various, it has been a challenge and a joyful challenge to consistently, intentionally speak to myself in an empowering way and look at my body as the magnificent creation that it is, and the way that it shows up for me every day, and the way that it's shown up through all 3 of my high seasons, my pregnancy seasons, and my labor and deliveries, and my postpartum seasons. And I do enjoy being pregnant because in a lot of ways since I look pregnant sort of at baseline because of my diastasis recti, I think it's given me, it just feels like I should be pregnant because that's the way my body is by default. And it feels, but I also am somebody who really enjoys being pregnant. I guess I'm saying in full disclosure that because my body is altered and because it's never going back, and I don't want it to go back. I reject that toxic narrative. But because I have struggled in some ways with my my abdominal musculature being stretched out and having that protrusion and looking somewhat pregnant, that when I am pregnant, and it is something I flaunt because I live in Maui, Hawaii, so I'm constantly in a bathing suit, constantly in workout clothes, and I don't hide from any of that. But it kind of looks disproportionate to like my limbs and the rest of my body. So when I am truly pregnant, and I can answer that, yes, I am pregnant, I enjoy that. But I also know that my body is a magnificent creation, and I used to answer out of like embarrassment or oh, it's okay, like don't worry, my baby's this, or just like trying to lessen other people's embarrassment at asking me if I was pregnant, like always worried about the other person. And now I speak life and love over myself, like with no shame, like no, I already had a baby, or no, that's my baby over there. And I've come a long way with that. But anyway, I did enjoy being pregnant in Bali and the whole season. We also did an ultrasound with a person who's become a dear friend, a fun ultrasound, not for medical reasons, just to see baby, get pictures, show Camden and Cruz. And we called her our Opihi. And Camden was really praying for a baby sister. Cruz thought it was a baby brother, but was open to either. I think Kai might have said sister as well. And toward the end of our pregnancy, we chose to go to Oahu, living on Maui, because I had postpartum hemorrhage with the first two, my first 2 deliveries, and I'll share that in my birth stories that I'll speak into with Camden and Cruz in future sit-down sessions, talk story sessions, as we like to say here in Hawaii. And so we went over to Oahu not knowing, I think my due date was July 1st. And I was really consistent working out, Peloton workouts, which is over here on my shoulder, as well as weights workouts and yoga, lots and lots of prenatal yoga, breathing, and had the goal of really feeling invited in this season with Chord Nalu to allow it to be healing, to allow this. I had amazing labor and delivery experiences with my first 2 experiences becoming a mom, but I did carry some birth trauma. I think if we're all real, like birth is trauma, and I want to get into that too with the physiological impact. It's meant to be physiologically traumatizing to the baby, so that their fetal heart circulation transitions from that intrauterine life to extrauterine life. And I mean, I was actually watching something about baby horses the other day, and there was a baby horse that was not doing as well as expected, or I think it was a baby cow, not doing as well as expected after being born. And so they were stressing the baby cow. It's a maneuver that they have. I mean, we do kind of similar things in the operating room after a C-section or the delivery room, as from the medical side, if babies need extra stimulation, just to remind them, like, you're here now, you're in the world, and we need to hear that strong cry, and we come into this world with breath, right? Like we wait to hear that first breath, that first cry, that first musical, beautiful sound that a human being makes in the delivery room, and it makes everything better. And it is the breath that we come into this life with, and it is the last breath that we take that we leave this world with. And so the breath is so powerful, and breath has carried me through all 3 of my deliveries. I'm also feeling very compelled to create a course for mamas called Hospital Home Birthing, because I feel uniquely poised to speak into that space. I'm definitely a physician, took that path and I took that oath, and I am honored and called to serve through medicine and love that. And I also have such a grounding in me through who I am as a human, as an empath, as someone who's meant to connect, as someone who's a conduit. I think spiritually, I read a room, I read people's energy, and I know how to connect with moms. It's my deep purpose. It's my life's calling. And so there's such a holistic side to me that I honor all the time. And with all 3 of my births, I hesitate to use the word natural, because every birth is different, and every birth is valid, and every birth is magnificent in its own way, however it unfolds. For me, I had unmedicated vaginal births in hospital setting all 3 times. And so I want to speak to the brilliance and genius zone of the medical team and hospital environments, and also to the brilliance and genius zone of mothers. And I want to speak life into how there can be a really beautiful harmony there. And I just feel called to do that, and based on my experiences, both professionally and personally. So that's something that I feel spilling out of me, and I'll allow it as I feel like I've been incubating, and so many things, like so many great ideas have been up high within me, and now it's time to birth those as well. Go through the labor pains of that. And so with Chord Nalu, I have been very active physically. And we went over to Oahu, stayed at a friend's house, started doing, transferred my care over from my OB here, who was wonderful, to the OB team that had cared for me with my previous 2 deliveries as well. And everything was going well, and I was getting twice weekly NSTs, like with baby, just checking on heart rate and movements, and those were going really well. And it was a Saturday. No, it was a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday, and we went in, and we had some plans to meet up with Camden's nanny, who had helped us through our first year of life when I was working like 80, 90-hour weeks in the hospital postpartum. And we had this beautiful soul who came into our lives and was helpful in Camden's first year of life. So we were going to meet up with her, and Camden was excited to show her her hula melly that she had learned at hula camp a week earlier, because it had just been the hula camp at our church, and we had just had Father's Day, and she had performed it for him, and then we had gotten on a plane on Father's Day, and I've been doing yoga every day. We went in, and the MFM, maternal fetal medicine doctor, who also is incredible. She had seen me a few times back from December when I had gotten the first scan, and then a few times as the pregnancy was continuing. And at this point, it was June 28th. It's her actual birthday. And I had the non-stress test, the NST, and they felt that she was non-reactive, meaning that she wasn't moving around as much as she should. And I felt her moving around. Her heart rate was fine. We converted that into a BPP, a biophysical profile, which is a little bit more in-depth study of baby and like fluid and how everything's looking. And on the fluid check on the ultrasound, it appeared that the fluid was kind of murky, kind of cloudy, not clear black as it is preferred to look on an ultrasound. And so that prompted the MFM doctor to suggest urgent, I want to say emergent, but urgent induction. At the time, I was not following her train of thought at all. I had been really hoping and manifesting, because my previous 2 deliveries were inductions. And so I really was desiring to go into labor on my own and to just, experience that from that angle. I'd had some contractions the week before driving and was excited and just knowing that my body was also preparing. I'm somebody whose body dilates like well in advance. So I hadn't been checking consistently, but I knew I was at least like 4 centimeters dilated and kind of walking around doing fine, not in labor, but dilated. And she was like, what are you guys doing later today? And I said, oh yeah, we're going to have shave ice with Camden's nanny, and she's going to show her her hula, and just kind of going into this whole spiel of what our morning was going to look like after this, because it was an early morning appointment. And looking back, reflecting, she was gently trying to guide me toward like, oh no, how about you're going to, I'm not calling the ambulance or anything, but you're going to take your Keiki, your children, back to wherever they're staying, and you're going to go ahead and check into L&D. I've just come from calling your OB team and recommending induction today for this concerns on your on the scans. We feel like the fluid is murky, your amniotic fluid, and it could be meconium. And at this moment, there was a lot of information. It was overwhelming, and it was scary to hear, because I've been in plenty of deliveries with meconium. Meconium is fecal matter, and it can be a sign of stress in babies. Like sometimes it happens, as they're stressed and when they're getting delivered, and if they happen to inhale it and it aspirates into their lungs at all, then it can be a very scary situation. And I've taken care of, a lot of babies that required NICU, higher level care in that instance. And so, and sometimes they don't swallow it, or not swallow, but sometimes they don't aspirate it and things are fine. It's just that is something that can occur, and I have been and seen those kind of outcomes occur. And so it was very heavy news to receive. First of all, I was grieving that, grieving this thought that I feel like my baby's okay, in my knowing she's moving, and I don't have these concerns, and yet I also do respect, and come from the medical community, and I know that these people share my goal of having a safe and healthy and happy delivery and baby in my arms. And so trusted that, and also then receiving the news that it could be meconium and what that might mean, and how that might mean that the team in my delivery room would include neonatologists. And that is another reason why we chose to deliver in Oahu at the hospital that I had worked at, because we have a beautiful, wonderful neonatology NICU team that is available. And so we started driving Camden and Cruz back over the Pali, the highway to Kailua, the side where our chosen Ohana lives. This was another source of really agony for me, just agonizing over childcare, and Cruz at that point hadn't really spent any time. I don't think I had spent any nights in his life away from him. He was 3 years old, and Camden really only the other time had been with our moms when he was born, and she had stayed back on Maui for that. And so really had been agonizing over childcare, and our friends, our chosen Ohana, stepped up in the most expansive way that I'll always be so grateful for, that I was able to trust and receive their willingness and their desire to be that for us, and that they could be close by, that they were well loved and celebrated during this time of transition for our family. And so we took them back over the Pali, and I remember having tears in my eyes, just being really overwhelmed about that this could be meconium, that this delivery was happening probably today, that things were outside of my control, and would I, and then the doubts started coming, and would I be able to perform? I didn't sleep that well last night. I didn't know it was going to be today, and will I be able to step up and do what I want to do for this baby and my body, and what if, and and just started to feel those feelings. And I remember the tears stinging in my eyes, and just the silent tears falling. And I remember reaching across the console to hold JD's hand, and I remember looking in the rearview mirror and seeing Camden and Cruz holding hands in the back, instinctively reading and realizing the weight of the moments, and understanding that something monumental was happening for our family. And so then I remember fielding them some questions and explaining it in an age-appropriate way, that they would be meeting their new baby sister or brother very soon, and that mommy was okay, and that it was important. This is why we were in a place to have the support around me. And so we had taken them home or to home away from home on Oahu, with our chosen ohana, and said a prayer together. And we said a prayer in the front yard. And I remember driving away from them, like, with all the heaviness of knowing that their world was about to be rocked. Like, it's the most amazing feeling. And also, I think, as any mother, most mothers would say, like, it's a both and. Like, it's a grief that that's the last time that they're going to see you in that capacity and be a mother of two, and because the next time your heart is going to be grown, and there's going to be another human that's inextricably part of you, that's been part of you, but then now lives outside your body and is their sibling, and it's so much, right? And just loving on them and holding them, and how little they are, and then all of a sudden they're so big when you come back with a newborn baby, and just all of that. So the grief and the gratitude that was just intertwined amidst. And I remember getting into the rental car with JD with our hospital bags, and we turned on a meditation, and these tears were silently falling, and just gathering myself, gathering my breath. I also texted. I had chosen both times after Camden and Cruise, we had beautiful postpartum newborn baby photos done. I had a cute outfit, like threw on a little mascara and eyeliner, which is like my only two signature makeup moves that have persisted if I do wear any makeup. And actually with both of them, I was severely anemic from the blood loss. Looking back, it's like, wow. But that was me, and that was the reality of the moment. But this time I thought how beautiful it would be to have real raw photos during my actual delivery, labor and delivery. And so I connected with this incredible photographer on island on Oahu, and we had plans to meet. However, knowing that I was being induced that day, we hadn't yet met. And so I went ahead and sent her a message saying, today is induction, this is happening. She lived like an hour away from the hospital on the North Shore, so wasn't sure if any of that lined up, but went ahead and wafted that out, because this new version of me was like, hey, if I feel that divine nudge to connect with somebody, I'm going to reach out, I'm going to do it. So, and she got back to me and was like, no, I want to try to make it. And so I didn't want to be on my phone updating, but I had JD handle that. So anyways, we drove into the hospital. I remember taking some sips, and again, just feeling this mixture of excitement and anticipation, anxiety, a lot of anxiety, like, will I, I'm walking in that, we parked in the physician parking because, will I be able to perform again? I've done this twice, right? But every time feels new, and this time felt fresh and new. And it was like around midday when we walked in and got checked into labor and delivery. And I remember sitting in the waiting room, and I still have this dichotomy in my head of like badging into these rooms and running to these rooms when I got paged for different reasons to attend the deliveries. And so when I'm there, hapai myself as the patient, as the mom, it's always so interesting, because my body has physically and spiritually been in all of those rooms. And this time, instead of overlooking H1, Highway 1, which is one side of the hospital, we overlooked the side street, and Shriners is over there, hospital. And there were 3 coconut palm trees, and they were swaying in like the afternoon light, and they became my focal point, and I actually worked them into the lullaby that I created for Chord. And I came in, and the OBGYN on call I knew her, didn't know her well. She had not delivered my other 2. Actually, I've had a different one every time. And she came in just like the most beautiful human, and she was recently off of a global mission trip caring for mothers in Mongolia. And I instantly just felt really connected with her emotionally and spiritually, and was so grateful for her. And when it came time to, I requested to AROM, artificially rupture my membranes, because since my body prepares well in advance of labor, when they checked me, I was 5.5 centimeters dilated upon checking in. So that was a good thing. And I think I was like 80% effaced already, cervical softening. So my body really preparing for labor, although it hadn't happened yet. And I had done the 45-minute yoga the day before. And so when it came time, I had a male nurse check me in. He was beautiful too, just the best energy. JD and I prayed over the hospital bed. And one of my dearest, closest Ohana friends came in, and she brought me some cookies from North Shore. I will epically always remember these chocolate chip cookies. I got to get the name again. But in my first 2 deliveries, there was some fear around like, oh, what if I have to convert to a C-section? And this time I was like, we're having the cookie, bitch. Like, so we ate that cookie. Yeah, I ate the shit out of that cookie, and it was amazing. Just the mindset that I had going into that. And so I remember we also talked about my history of postpartum hemorrhage and decided to have TXA, tranexamic acid, which is a really cool medicine. It was actually discovered, I believe, I'll have to fact check myself, but I believe it was discovered by a woman in Japan. And like the magnitude of her brilliant discovery wasn't at first realized, but in subsequent years, it's been used in everything from like trauma medicine, gunshot victims, people with massive blood loss, to I believe it's also used in like rosacea. It has some indications in the dermatological realm as well. And so from a postpartum hemorrhage standpoint, they thought, let's have this medicine hung and ready. And so I remember my nurse getting it hung and ready. And just this was something new for me. I was a little nervous to introduce that, but also thinking like if we can avoid a postpartum hemorrhage clearly, and the blood products that I had required, I required 4 transfusions with my first delivery and 3 with my second. And, grateful for modern medicine, but it was a lot. And if I really felt that this delivery was an invitation to healing, to believing, to having faith that it could be different, to knowing that my body could do this. And so it was with these emotions that they entered into that delivery room and saw that late afternoon light with those 3 palm trees and the shadows they cast, turned down the lights, and my OBGYN came in, and I asked her to artificially rupture the membranes as the start to induction, because in the previous 2 births I had really good success with basically ending the spa. I call it ending their 9-month spa appointment, draining the tub. Your spa appointment's over, like that gentle tap that's like, hope you've enjoyed your treatment. Like go ahead and collect yourself in your robe, and I'll be waiting outside. That kind of thing. Except I'm the mom, and I'm like, I'm here waiting outside. Like go ahead and hop off your amniotic placental spot table and just head on out when you're ready. But maybe don't take too long. But I'll be out here with a glass of water. Actually, I'll be out here with my boob, right? And so she was amenable to that plan, to breaking my water and seeing what happens. And she broke my water. And I was very prepared for meconium stained fluid, because that would be an indication that the amniotic fluid was meconium stained, and that would mean that it would be kind of brown, and that would mean, okay, maybe we need to have the NICU team, the neonatology team on standby for the delivery. By the way, her baby's heart rate was looking really good from the monitor. And the fluid was, I'm going to say it was like this kind of beautiful light orange color. And she said, your fluid is vernix stained. And it's truly one of the most beautiful sentences I've ever heard in my life. It was very melodic. We had decided on the name Chord regardless. Either way, it was like a beautiful musical chord in that room, because it brought tears to my eyes when she said it. Of course it was vernix. Of course everything was okay. Of course I could surrender. It wasn't meconium. She wasn't in distress. Vernix is that cheesy kind of white material that you not often notice on babies when they're first born. Some of them are really coated. Some of them just have varying degrees on it. But if you've ever seen, photos of fresh newborn or held your fresh newborn, you remember that they had some like cheesy caseous vernix, we call it, kind of a protective skin emollient, like, so to speak. And for whatever reason, my amniotic fluid was just covered in vernix, and that was the cloudiness that was seen on the ultrasound, and she was in fact not with meconium. So that was a hallelujah moment, and really melted into that knowledge, and was so grateful when she said that. It just made me, it elevated me, it lifted me, it left me speechless, and surrendered. And so shortly after the contractions, I believe my water was broken at like 2:17 or so. And then for the next 2 hours until around like 4, the later part of the afternoon 4, I walked around. I was on the medicine ball. There were contractions happening. They were building. They were manageable. And I had like a lot of amniotic fluid still kind of gushing out as it slowly leaked out. And I just kept wetting all the diapers and like the pads that they had. So I was just like, at one point I was just like, made the decision to be naked because I just was changing so much and I was focusing on myself and on my breathing and on laboring. So here, me in the hospital home birth, I'm just like done with this restrictions and stuff. So I'm standing there, I'm walking around. And then around, maybe 4:30, 4:45, the contractions began to pick up, and I would look out at those 3 palm trees as my 3 that swing in the afternoon breeze. They looked like they were swaying hula just in the afternoon trade winds, and they were my anchor points. And I remember distinctly, breathing in the beautiful golden light of the afternoon sun and receiving all that divine energy, the divine that's within me, the divine, all the ancestors and all the mothers who have come before me, all the ways that I am chosen for this role as a mother, all of the feelings that I'm safe and I am protected and I am loved and I'm worthy. And I am love. And I breathed that in and that golden light around baby and myself. And I would smile with each coming contraction as I felt my body preparing for the next intense contraction. And JD was watching the monitor, and I barely looked at the monitor because I knew intuitively in my body. And they started to intensify and continue to grow in intensity. And I remember